Free Japan Channel, FJC number 12. Today, 18th November 2023. Here in Yokohama, the time is 5 p.m. Late November, the sun has already sunk in the western sky. So the night is beginning to develop here in Yokohama. Dear listeners, how are you doing? Today's topic is the Battle of Iwo Island. This battle took place in February 1945, so almost the end of the Pacific War. But this battle was so harsh, so severe that the casualty of the United States outnumbered that of Japanese Army and Navy. Do you know where Iwo Island is? Approximately, this island is located in the middle of Tokyo and Saipan. So this island was at the time very important in the military perspective because the Saipan Island was gotten by the United States June 1944, and United military officials schemed to bomb the cities of Japan from the Saipan Island or Tinian Island. But the distance between Marshall Islands and the distance between Mariana Islands and Japan was so great, was so long that the bomber 29 were in danger, even if they want to attack the cities of Japan. And as I said, Iwo was located in the middle of Japan and Saipan, for example, or Tinian. Then this island could be the transit airport to attack the cities of Japan for the United States Army. So this island was very important for the United States and of course for Japanese defense army. At the time, Japanese army sent approximately 20,000 soldiers to Iwo Island, and civilians had been living on the island, but they were all evacuated before the attack of United States. So when the U.S. Navy and Army approached Iwo Island, only soldiers were there on the island. The general of Japanese Army was Tadamichi Kuribayashi. This general planned to dig the tunnel, the underground tunnel on the Iwo Island. So finally, this tunnel stretched roughly 20 kilometers under the ground. So U.S. Army and Navy couldn't defeat the visible target before landing on the island. It was a strategy of General Kuribayashi. Kuribayashi had the experience to to live in the United States as a soldier, as a superior official soldier. So he knew very well how big the United States is and how strong the United Army is. So he knew from the first that Japanese army couldn't fight against the United States on the ground. So under the ground, like guerrilla, Japanese army tried to fight against the United States Army. At first, the general of the United States who was in charge of this attack thought that in 5 days, the island could be seized by the United States because the artillery of the United States was so strong, powerful than that of Japanese army, and there was no aid troops from Japan because Iwoto was a solitary island, and around the island, American battleships and airplanes were guarding. So Japan couldn't send the supplies, fuels, food, water, and ammunition to the island. So only the stock could be available to Japanese army or Japanese defense army. But the General Kuribayashi told his men, his soldiers, that they should defeat 10 U.S. soldiers per one Japanese soldier. So one Japanese soldier had to kill 10 U.S. soldiers. That was the strategy or purpose of General Kuribayashi, and this strategy was thoroughly familiar to Japanese defensive soldiers. At first, Japanese army didn't do anything under the ground. So in February 1945, U.S. Navy swarmed to Iwo Island, and Japanese defensive army didn't do anything. And before landing on the beach of the island, U.S. battleships launched their ammunition to the island during 3 days, daytime at night, and they thought that this harsh missile could annihilate the Japanese army on the island. So after the attack from the battleships, the U.S. Navy and Army began to land on the island. But it was a time that the General Kuribayashi had been waiting. When the army tried to land on the island, the beach is the most dangerous zone for the attacking part, because they don't know anything about the terrain, and water and sand. They couldn't move so quickly on the beach. So this was the time that General Kuribayashi planned to attack the United States Army. So he firstly ordered to begin the attack, and the Japanese attack was so harsh on the U.S. soldiers, and the thousands of U.S. soldiers were killed even on the first day of the attack. So the general of United States Navy and Army completely lost their faces because they thought that they could seize the island only during 5 days. Thanks to the long tunnel, and the Japanese soldiers knew everywhere of the island, so they could assault from the place where they wanted to, and U.S. soldiers were totally at a loss. They couldn't find out from where they were shot. However, there was no troops, no aid from Japan, so the stock began to run out on the side of Japanese army. So contrary to the prediction of U.S. military officials, the battle continued 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, but in March, the Japanese army began to run out of their food, water, and ammunition. There were 20,000 Japanese soldiers on the island, or under the island, precisely speaking, and only 500 survived. So the rest, 19,500 soldiers died on the Japanese side. Of course, the deaths on the U.S. side was much smaller, but considering the war, we talk about casualties. So casualty means the dead soldiers and wounded soldiers. So U.S. casualties outnumbers that of the Japanese army. So General Kuribayashi was and has been praised on the U.S. Army officials as an excellent or strategic general on the side of Japanese army. So the memory of Iwo-to, or the Battle of Iwo Island, was so miserable, both for Japanese soldiers and U.S. soldiers. But we should always remember this helpless or desperate battle of Japanese soldiers. Why did they fight so persistently, so tenaciously? The reason was that they tried to prolong the attack of the cities of Japan. When they fought, the attack of the Japanese city was extended, was put off, because the Iwo-to was the middle of the Tokyo and Saipan, for example. So U.S. Air troops, U.S. airplanes or bombers couldn't so freely attack the cities. So Japanese soldiers, fought this helpless battle for the families of Japan, whom they left behind in Japan. One day they could persist. One day the attack of the city would be put off in the future. So this was the reason why Japanese soldiers or generals fought against America. Of course, now is a time of democracy, and we can't understand exactly the mentality of the Japanese soldiers at the time, but the not only generals, Kuribayashi, but also the unknown or nameless Japanese soldiers fought and died on the island for their ancestral country, Japan. So this battle of Iwoto should be remembered not only by Japanese but also by Americans. Thank you.